الإعجاب بالفيديو والاشتراك في القناة تشجيعا لنا لنستمر بنشر المزيد إن شاء الله.
If you're gonna be at the top, you're gonna piss some people off.
I chose bodybuilding. It didn't choose me. People think I'm sour grapes that I didn't beat Dorian. Nobody beat Dorian.
Current era against your era.
They're lucky that Dexter's not 10 years younger.
Top 5 greatest bodybuilders of all time.
You're not gonna find me talking about how to use anabolics with anybody.
You ever gotten into a fight with any of these guys?
I pushed a lot of buttons, trust me.
Whose fault is that though?
I heard you say something like, what is the Olympia doing for you athletes? They don't owe us anything. It's just like boxing. Like if you're a boxer. Well, listen, we're not a union. Hold on. This is not the NFL and it's not the NBA. You've got Flex Lewis coming back. Hottie Chupin's coming back. Does Phil Heath come back or not? The Olympia does not need Phil Heath to make the Mr. Olympia.
I'm not saying that. Of course it doesn't.
How can he sit at home and watch the competition that made him who he is?
You're sensitive.
I'm not sensitive.
Shot.
In terms of what? Are you kidding me? The Olympia was bigger and better than it's ever been, even though Phil wasn't there. All I'm saying is it's bigger than any bodybuilder. It's an institution.
I search for the path to the goal, and I pray to my God on the daily, cause tomorrow ain't promised, oh no. When I go.
He was working with Dallas McCarver. When he started working with Dallas McCarver, I said Dallas has 6 months to live. He died 8 months later. He was working with Dallas McCarver. When he started working with Dallas McCarver, I said Dallas has 6 months to live. He died 8 months later. So I have a reason to be pissed. I'm not prophetic. I'm not Nostradamus. But I know danger when I see it, and I knew that guy was dangerous back in the 90s.
So let me ask you this. I got my second video to show you here. And the second video, I think you kind of have an idea what the video is going to be. This is the second video, okay? You know what's about to happen in about 11 seconds.
I'm at the mic. I tried to approach Dallas for an interview prior to him going on stage.
He
said, get the hell away from me. I'm not talking to you. Before he walked on this stage, 10 minutes before he walked out there, and I said, why are you not talking to me? He says, because you were talking shit. Earlier in the year, probably 2 months before that, when he was working with Chad, he went and posed for Jim Mannion 2 weeks out from the Arnold, Ohio. This is the Arnold in Australia. Dallas went up to Pittsburgh and posed for Jim Mannion, bent over, he was cramping, he was pale white, he looked like he was in distress, but they videotaped it and put it online. I looked at it and analyzed it, and I said, who does that? Like, who would ever go in front of, I would never go in front of Joe Weider, totally pale, bent over, can't hold my front double bicep, can't hold my stomach in. What kind of analysis was he expecting? He didn't like what I had to say. He was working with Chad Nichols and a couple other people. He took it personal. He went in, and I said, despite all of that, in 3 weeks' time, he's going to be fighting for first place against Cedric McMillan. He got second place. 2 weeks later, the guy gets carried off the stage and is throwing up. I was standing on the other side of the stage when they brought him back there with the EMTs. I wasn't gloating in his demise, but I knew then he's in distress for one reason, the things that he was doing. He was being fast-tracked, taking too much too soon, didn't want to hear the brutal, honest truth. I said he should have shut it down after that contest. 2 months after that show, he went up and guest posed at the Emerald Cup weighing about 315 pounds. So he didn't shut it down. He actually accelerated. He went from dieted down on stage to putting on another probably 40 pounds, guest posing, straight into the ground. It could have been prevented.
So let me ask you this. Here's some of the bodybuilders that have passed away. Dallas McCarver, Rich Piana, Andres Munzer, Mohamed Benaziza, Greg Kovacs, Matarazzo, Comerford, El-Sombati, Art Wood, Charles Dorr, Hillerbrand, Menser, both of them brothers, Ray and Mike, Ross, Youngblood, you know these
Matt
names.
Duvall.
Matt Duvall, and there's many names. I don't want to go through all of them. You know the names.
I know all of them.
How many of these could have been prevented?
You can't save someone from themselves.
No. Here's what I mean by it. And I'm going in a part to help with an element of bodybuilding that's uncomfortable to talk about. This is what I mean by it. I'm not saying you can't prevent somebody from doing it. They're doing it because they feel the doing part could potentially help them have an edge over their competitors,
sure.
Right? But how much of it has to do with going and doing too much dosage of the steroids, whatever it is, the GH, the PEDs? How much could that have been prevented?
Well, we don't know what any of these guys are taking. I can't paint them with the same brush. You hear the word steroids, you think a needle and a syringe, but there's a lot of different types of steroids. These guys, some of them I would attribute probably insulin. I'd probably attribute some of the growth hormone. There's use and abuse, and nobody's smarter than the next, but our sport is made up of a lot of misfits. We come in with a lot of baggage. Some of the guys think if a little bit's good, a little bit more is better. Some may have some predisposed conditions that exist that might get exacerbated by growth hormones, speed up the process. We know that Munzer, probably diuretics. Vince Comerford's dead, but he was over the age of 50 when he died, and he was a notorious drug user. Paul DeMeo, huge drug user. So we don't know the habits of these bodybuilders, whether they cycled on or cycled off. But I can tell you, the ones that are there, I think the one commonality is we would all agree that they're probably abusers, not users. And there's a big difference. I can drink a beer and I'm fine. You might not be able to stop at one. You need 3 or 4. And then you're either the life of the party, you're throwing up, or you want to fight everybody in the room. It's the same alcohol, it just has a different effect on your height, weight, and your shape. The bodybuilders, when it comes down to pharmacology, are combining all kinds of stuff. A lot of them are working with trainers that have no idea. Getting a blood test isn't the end-all, be-all for taking steroids. There's use and abuse. Just because you have a Ferrari doesn't mean you have to drive 200 miles an hour. And if you do, we could pretty much bet
Just a matter of time.
It's a matter of time.
It's a matter of time.
With a lot of these bodybuilders, when you have the means and the access, and you have people pushing you. I saw you interview Ronnie Coleman. I don't think Ronnie Coleman probably even, he was taking stuff he didn't even know he was taking. Chad Nichols was giving him whatever he wanted to give him. Whatever it was.
Right.
He didn't know what it was. So high-level athletes with high intelligence are willing to do whatever it takes. So you're going to have this list. But this is a very small list by comparison to the millions of weightlifters and the thousands of professionals. So there's going to be a casualty.
I'm going a completely different angle
Go ahead.
than where you think I'm going. This is the angle I'm taking right now. The angle I'm taking is, you said Samir Bannout. You said in one of the interviews, you said the one guy that I would be afraid of going on stage is the 1983
Yeah,
Bannout,
the
because
first,
you beat him in an 88 or 89, but the 83 one, right? You said you'd be afraid to go up against that guy.
Scary.
Hey, look at that guy. Beautiful
Yeah.
body. Just a godlike figure,
Very
right?
complete.
Good physique. But today, do you have any health problems?
Yeah, absolutely none.
Absolutely not. That's the point I'm making. So the point I'm trying to make too is, it doesn't mean you didn't do steroids. You don't hear a lot of times about drug testing with the guys at the top, even though everybody knows everyone's using it. This is the point I'm trying to make. If you're 22 today, would you go the same route with Mr. Olympia?
I would, because it's a numbers game. Listen, I loved bodybuilding. I wouldn't do it for free. If that prize money is what it is, I'm in it because I would have the potential. And I would think I could beat what's there. I think what's there now is more beatable than when I started. When I started, I mean, what was there, I was like, Greek gods. I mean, and you had to, mind you, Lee Labrada was getting second, and Rich Kaspari was getting second. So on one hand, it was unfathomable that I could be there, and on the other hand, it was realistic that if I keep doing what I'm doing, I could be there. And I woke up one day and I was there. When I heard Lee Labrada announced in 3rd place and Sean Ray in 2nd in 94, I mean, for me, that was my small Olympia victory. Even during my time, Lee Haney was the only one to finish his career, I think, better than when he started. His last Olympia in 91, he could sail off into the sunset. Dorian Yates, you needed a wheelchair for him. Ronnie Coleman, he's kind of sloppy at the end. Phil Heath was not what he was when he started his reign. So these bodybuilders, they don't get better. They typically get worse. Dexter's found a way to kind of be consistently consistent, but he's nowhere near the 2008. He's found a way to maximize what he has without trying to blow it all out.
How's his health?
That's a question for Dexter, because I wouldn't know. I imagine.
What I mean by that is, did a Chad get a hold of him or no?
He's always worked with like Charles Glass.
Okay.
He's had various, George Farah. Charles isn't a guru. He's a coach. He's a trainer.
He's a legend.
Chad is a guru that doesn't have the medical background, and I don't have the respect for him. His wife was a 4-time Ms. Olympia. She was the game changer on the female side of things because he dried her out. Ronnie Coleman didn't win the Olympia because he got big. Ronnie Coleman dried out through whatever protocols Chad put him on. You saw him in 98. He was never that dry in his whole career. That's why he leapfrogged over everyone. And then everyone wanted to jump onto that bandwagon.
Behind backstage stories. So, you know, Kevin says a story about you. Kevin says...
I had dinner with him last night.
Yeah, dinner with him last night. But by the way, I always liked his physique. In the Army, had pictures on the wall. I always liked... Kevin had a very different kind of a physique. I mean, I don't know... You know, I actually can't say another physique that matches Kevin's physique. It was very different of a physique he had. But he told a story one time. He says backstage, he's dehydrated, and he's talking to you, and he says, hey, Sean, listen, man, I need some, can you give me some of those orange slice?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I'm not giving you orange slice. You go get your own, right?
Yeah.
So he said there's a different madness with Sean behind closed doors when it's competition, when you compete against each other. Do you have any crazy stories against other guys like a Yates or a Ronnie or a Haney or any of those stories that you have?
Yeah, no, there was nothing crazy about showing up backstage at the Olympia. Listen, I mean, I walk in there and it's like this. This is what I'm looking at. I'm 5'7", 210 pounds, but I got to stand next to what, that's what they look like. It was very intimidating to think that I've got to ignore them on stage. I tried to squeeze in a couple of pose downs and got muscled out. I mean, elbows flying. Flex Wheeler almost knocked me off the stage because I tried to duck underneath.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was in a washing machine. And Ronnie Coleman and Kevin, these guys are like, you know, in my mind, they're like raging. We were more sociable off stage. Backstage, it was more like a church. You know, you just do your meditation and you do your thing. I didn't have to meditate. I got there. I was full of energy. This is what I train for. It's what I live for. It's like game day for me. I never felt near death. I didn't cramp up. I only had one cramp in my life in a bodybuilding show in '92 in Helsinki, Finland. I tried to dry out because it's a transatlantic flight, and I tried to dry out, and I just dried out a little bit too much. I cramped up in my hamstring very briefly. But I never felt, one, that I didn't have a shot at winning, and two, that this is a miserable experience.
Never felt.
I always thought that on any given day I could be Mr. Olympia, which is what got me out of bed.
You ever gotten into a fight with any of these guys, or no? Was there
No,
ever like?
I mean, listen, bodybuilders are like cats. They make a lot of noise, but they don't necessarily deliver. Dorian wasn't someone you wanted to stare down. You know, Dorian was intimidating.
Really?
You saw him walk by, you knew he was coming through. A wide